I'm Demi Ellie, the founder here at Ellie Strategies, and today I want to talk to you about when you should not respond to the RFP. Now, I know that finding new business can be tough, and when you have a potential opportunity, it can be really tempting to go ahead and pursue it, especially if it's an RFP that you found online and seems aligned with your business and what you sell. While it's tempting to always throw your name in the hat, there actually are a few times where it's better to actually not respond to the RFP. So let's go ahead and look at a few examples. Up first, it's a good idea to not respond to the RFP if there's unclear scope. So when you're reading through the RFP, especially for complicated services projects, make sure that you're watching to see if it's clear that they know what it is exactly that they need. Because if you're reading through it and you feel like, okay, they're kind of asking for a lot of things, but it's obvious that they don't know exactly what this is going to entail, then that means that whenever you actually do win the project, if you bid, it's going to be hard for you to actually align with their expectations and what it is that they want, because they don't even know what it is that they want. And it's also going to be hard for you to actually create a proposal that can show them what will happen, because there's not clear definitions around what the project scope is. If this happens, it's not unusual for them to actually end up canceling the RFP because they realize that it's not clear. So whenever you see an RFP like this, where it's kind of clear that they don't have it exactly figured out just yet, be really careful during the question period and ask a lot of questions to make sure that they start to either clarify it or just show like, hey, there's a lot of things that's missing here, and they might end up canceling and rebidding because it's just needs to be a little bit more clear. So just be really careful and consider not responding to the RFP if it's a case where the project scope is just super unclear and it seems like you could end up with a contract that's actually a really big pain for you to manage because you're not going to be able to live up to their expectations. Another time you should not respond to the RFP is if you are reading through it or you have spoken to the buyer and you know that they have a really good relationship with the incumbent and they want to continue working with them. So in most cases, it means that they're releasing this RFP because they have to go through and do their due diligence. It's over a certain threshold or something like that. So they're going to release it, but they really want to award it to the incumbent. So they're going to see how they can, score in certain ways while obviously trying to stay objective and still award it to the incumbent. Of course, it is possible for you to write a really persuasive proposal that will help you to score higher than the incumbent, but it can be really tough to do this if you haven't yet talked to the buyer or you don't have all the information that you need to really be persuasive and to really sell why you're a better choice than someone who's worked with them before. So in the scenario where there's a strong incumbent, sometimes it's best to wait, build the relationship before the RFP is released, or pass on it until the contract comes up for renewal and you have more insight. Another situation that's similar to the incumbent one is if it's very clear that the RFP was actually written for a competitor. So when you're reading through the RFP, you might notice that there are some references and some language or features or even processes that are very specific to a particular competitor of yours. If this is the case, then it's a sign that they're actually hoping to award the project to that competitor, and any time you spend creating this proposal might be wasted. Of course, you can always review your competitor proposals and highlight why your solution is in fact better for this customer. And it's up to you to determine if it makes sense to do that for this opportunity, if it's enough of a priority. But if you know someone else is favored, it might be a better fit for you to wait until there's a different RFP that's not currently written for one of your competitors. Another time you might not want to respond to an RFP is if you just don't have the resources to actually respond to it. So an effective proposal, which I've talked about a lot, it has a lot of components to it, such as really strong win themes, content that's really written for the buyer that really speaks to what it is that they want, and all of the specific details of what exactly you're going to do once you're awarded. So this planning requires that people go through and create a lot of content, that they're reviewing it, they're managing the RFP, they're making sure it's compliant, and they actually go through and submit the proposal. But if your team is already strapped for time, they might produce, a subpar proposal that misses out on key points or doesn't really sell your company in the way that it needs to in order for you to actually win that RFP. So in these cases, sometimes it's better for you to wait and save time, both your company and your team's time, so that way they can focus on the other tasks on their plate or bring in extra resources to actually manage this RFP response. And at the end of the day, hopefully all of you will walk away with a little bit more sanity if you choose to prioritize your internal resources in their current projects versus pursuing this RFP where you might not be able to put together a winning proposal. Another reason I would not recommend responding to an RFP is if you don't have clear differentiators. So, as you can see from many of the past examples, knowing your competition and knowing the customer is really essential for you to stand out when responding to RFPs. Of course, pricing is important, but your actual solution and selling points are equally important. As you'll see, if there's evaluation criteria, a lot of times pricing is just one piece, it's not the entire thing. So, you have to think about your overall proposal. So, if you read through the RFP and you don't have a clear angle to beat out your top competitors, then it might be better to spend extra time on the RFP where you actually do have those differentiators than this one where it's not clear exactly how you'll win. And then the last reason I'll cover today for when you should not respond to the RFP is don't respond if you do not meet the requirements. So this may seem obvious, but you might someday be presented with an RFP where you meet 3/4 of the requirements, but you don't meet the rest, and you're like, well, let's just send out a proposal and see what happens. In some cases, you might win, but most of the time, you're going to be going up against someone who does actually meet all of the requirements, or maybe several companies who meet all of the requirements. And that means that you spent all this time creating this proposal that you're not even going to be considered in a top contender because you just don't meet the basic requirements. So in these cases, I'd recommend not responding to the RFP and waiting for one where you do actually check off all of the boxes. Okay, so that's all that I had for today for when you should not respond to RFPs. If you're new to the world of RFPs and you'd like a little bit more information, make sure you check out our free training on how to win your first RFP, which is linked to below this video. In the meantime, go ahead and subscribe to this channel for future proposal tips, and I'll see you in the next video.